Over the past 2 years, Zimbabwe has been experiencing acute cash shortages. So severe have the shortages been that we've started seeing groceries and basics disappearing from our shelves in our supermarkets. Today, we've got experts from various crucial sectors who've been failing to access foreign exchange from the central bank so that they can help us identify where the problem is coming from and possibly proffer solutions to this problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them each 5 minutes to give us an introduction and overview of how things are going in the relevant sectors. From there, we'll then take it up discussion style and ask them questions as to how we can solve the predicament that we find ourselves in as an economy. So we'll ask them to introduce themselves from Mr. Mtash at the extreme end of the table.
My name is Mtash. I'm with the Confederation of Zimbabwe.
I'm Rose Mpofu from the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe.
I'm Scarcity from the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries.
I'm Pati Famwendera from the Pharmaceutical Society of Zimbabwe.
Ashok Chakravarti, I'm an economist.
Temba Ndebele, Chairman of the Retail Association.
So to kick it off, we're going to start with Mr. Ndebele. Retailers have been affected. A few weeks back, we saw retailers shut their doors because they were overwhelmed with demand and panic buying. As people felt the goods were underpriced, some were even hedging using their products. So we're going to ask him to give us an overview of the sector from that time to where we are now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd say around about the 8th of October, the former retailers, which is the listed retailers of KTM, Pick and Paste, Bar Corporate, Edgar's, Truett's, Electrosales, and so forth. We experienced a run on our products where customers began to buy things, mainly for resale. Okay, and much of that was triggered by the shortage of foreign currency. At that point in time, the stores were adequately stocked, and the shortage of foreign currency, which manifested itself through the shortage of fuel, did cause that panic. That's point number one. And the second point, the second panic was caused by the introduction of the 2% transaction tax. And I don't think people have actually thought through what the impact on businesses with low margins, okay, is going to be. Because that 2% transaction tax is a cost, okay? And for you to cover that cost and safeguard the bottom line of 3.5%, you effectively have, as a supplier of goods, have to increase your prices by 200 to 300% for you to maintain your position. You know? So the 2% transaction tax did cause a lot of problems. It's not a simple 2% tax. It is a cost which is coming to hit you directly on your profits, which at this point in time is not explained whether it's tax deductible or not. Okay. And then the other thing is, traditionally, for time immemorial, in this country where the tobacco auction floors close, we always have a currency problem, this currency shortage. I remember in the 80s and 90s when I started my career, you knew that when the floors closed, the Zimbabwe dollar then would actually devalue. Okay? Right? We know that, and the authorities know, that after the closure of the tobacco auction floors, our trade deficit always deteriorates. Okay? And secondly, it's a time of high demand for product in preparation for the festive season. So you always have the currency deficit during that time. Okay? You know, and it happens every year, but this year it was just much more pronounced because of these other factors that I spoke about. Shortage of fuel, which triggered this thing, the 2% transaction tax triggered this thing, the separation of the Nostro and RTGS and bond caused a lot of panic because people began to value, you know, the currencies to say, look, this must be this, and people began to lack confidence. Okay, yeah. And one biggest thing was lack of confidence and trust. But all I can tell you now is most of the running the supermarkets, we actually believe it's not consumers voting. Yes, there's an element of consumer voting, but there was an element of speculative trading. Okay, where people were buying products and people buying goods for resale.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that most of the voting that was done in the system has been speculative voting. From the group professor here, we want to understand, from an economist's point of view, why do you think we are where we are right now? And do you think that possible solutions to the problem? Because the thing is, we've just continuously seen the premium on the US dollar fluctuating on the market, and the man on the street does not understand why that these fluctuations. We've heard the retailers saying that they now have to put a 300, 200 markup because we now have an intermediary tax. How do you think all these things are going to pan out in the future? Because it's almost year in, we're starting a new year, next year we're not going to close the country because we're having problems, things have to go forward. So from your point of view as an economist, how do you think we can get out of this situation?
No, thank you, facilitator. So I think we need to go back a little bit. I think my colleague here, he has highlighted some of the immediate issues which we are seeing in the market. But these problems started some years ago. And what we have to focus upon is what started happening around 4 or 5 years ago, which was that the level of government expenditure became more and more uncontrolled. And that resulted in a fiscal deficit which was getting more and more and more. So in the last 3 years, the fiscal deficit has added up to more than $6.2 billion. So what is this? This fiscal deficit is basically electronic money which is being created. There's nothing to back it. So as you know, my position has been very clear. For many years I've been saying that if you keep on creating electronic money, and we have now created so much electronic money that we have about over $10 billion in all our deposit accounts in the country. This is not US dollars. It's electronic money which was created through an overdraft with the Reserve Bank. So it's just a book entry, right? The government gets an overdraft and then it pays people. There's nothing to back it. It's just purely a book entry and electronic transaction. So if you we have created over $10 billion of electronic money, which is not backed by anything. And this has been happening over the years. So, the economy is like a dam. You don't see anything, but it keeps on filling up gradually. And then it comes to a point where it bursts. And now we are seeing that effect, but it has all been building up over the last several years. So the first thing that needs to be done is, if we are to address any of these problems, is that we have to come down to a zero fiscal deficit. There must be no more creation, the government over expenditure must stop, and there must be no more creation of electronic RTGS money. That itself will not solve the problem, because we do have this $10 billion which is around our neck now. It's all your money and my money, and people are asking, what is it really? And how do we value it? So that's the second issue that will have to be tackled. So first we need the government the Ministry of Finance in this budget to indicate very clearly how the deficit is going to decline to zero. Because this is a problem that has been going on for many years, and we as economists, we have been talking about it for many years. I started talking about it in 2014 at the ZNCC conference. So to us, we have seen the indications. So number one, fiscal deficit, government expenditure must be completely curtailed and the tap should be put off. Secondly, then if that is controlled, we have to look at what to do with the money that we have in our deposit accounts. And then thirdly, which is connected to that, there is no way of getting out of some kind of currency reform. The reality is that it is not one-to-one. The Nostro US dollar and the RTGS US dollar, they are not the same thing. They are two different things, and there has to be acceptance of the fact that some market has to be created. Currently our problem in pricing is that we get our prices out of 4th Street, or out of the Zimbabwe index, or out of across the border in Messina. But that's not the way that you should have foreign exchange pricing. Foreign exchange pricing should be done in a transparent manner. There should be a platform, an interbank platform, which is regulated by the monetary authorities, where you have trading which is open and understood by everybody, and you get a rate out of it which then producers, consumers, retailers can use in their pricing. So until we have a clearly delineated distinction between the RTGS dollar and the Nostro FCA, and what I'm saying is a liberalized foreign exchange market where open foreign exchange trading can happen, we are not going to be able to solve our problem.
Well, we'll come back to you in a moment as we go to the pharmacists. This is probably the sector that everyone in the economy is upset with, because drugs are now being sold in US dollars. of course, the Prof has made us see that while every other economy on the continent was busy progressing, our economy was busy creating nothing money. So we need to understand from the pharmacists, why do we suddenly have medicine being priced in US dollars? Because lives are going to be lost if we continue on this path. How do you think this can be solved in the end? And how much are you getting from the central bank? Because we've heard that you are not getting adequate allocation from the central bank. You're running short, so you need to at least break even. So we need to understand from you why we have medicine being charged in US dollars, and how you think we can overcome this solution without you telling us that the central bank needs to give you enough money, because the cake is simply not enough. The central bank is on record saying that against a cover of about $1 billion, they've got $200 million in foreign reserves. So the cake is just not enough. So what do you think should be done?
Okay. Yes. Sadly, that's the situation that we're in, and I think health is quite an emotive discussion. I think we heard from the retailers. They have indicated that they would to maintain just the same level of maybe margins that they had before the introduction of the 2% tax. They have to maybe increase by 200 to 300%.
You need to increase by about 60%, and then once you have the currency moving, and then you end up to 20%.
Yeah.
So just to cater for that transaction tax is a minimum increase.
Yeah. So my point is that is not an easy discussion when you're talking about medication. You know, even just the 10% increase is not an easy discussion, which is why we have this whole lot of issues to do with the medicines in particular. But maybe a brief background to why we are where we are. The supply of medicines in Zimbabwe is solely based on importation. We do have non-manufacturing companies for human medicines in Zimbabwe, but they do have to import about 40 to 60% of their raw materials that they need. But even the containers that they use, you know, we will take them as to say they do buy a bottle from Zimglass locally, but we know Zimglass also has an import component to that glass. So the dependence on imported products in the pharmaceutical sector in Zimbabwe is close to 95%. That is finished product and even the items that we are manufacturing. So this means for the 400 million that we use for medicines in Zimbabwe, we have to have that as US dollars, as foreign currency of some sort. So what happened over the last few years has been a deterioration in terms of allocations directed to the industry for the importations. The industry forecast that they need about 4 million a week to be allocated to the industry. And we would say from January up to the end of September this year, we only managed to get about 7.5% of that we needed. How we have been progressing all along has been due to arrangements that have been made by suppliers and their foreign suppliers in terms of creating credit facilities. So when October 6th, where we had an upheaval in the market, the people who are giving you credit now realize things are not the same, or we don't perceive the same situation that we had when we're giving you this credit. So there was I would say maybe a credit crunch. There was a challenge in that we couldn't still utilize the same credit facilities for the products. We had, over the years since January, been running out of medications. I think it's common knowledge that you go into any public sector facility now, you have to buy nearly everything that you need, including bandages, syringes, and all that. This is an indication that the situation has been deteriorating. But things came to a head on the 6th of October, where we actually had pharmacies having to close because the suppliers were now saying, we do not know whether you'll be able to pay us. If you want to get this stock, we know if you have US dollars, we can provide because that is what we need to import it. And we saw a turn in most of the suppliers actually now demanding payment in Forex for the stock that they were holding on credit from foreign suppliers, to say if we were to release this stock to the market, at least pay us in the US dollars. So they were now demanding the US dollars from the retailer for that. And what did the retailer have to do? As indicated, we don't have an official market for foreign exchange. So the only way they could continue offering the product to the patient is also to demand for payment in the currency that they've paid for it. And now we have seen a shift towards nearly the majority of the products you can access through a pharmacy locally is through US dollars. So it's a way to try and address public health need where people need a supply, they need the product. But how do you get the product if the next person whom you are procuring from is asking for US dollars?
Thank you so much. I guess we've got an overview of what's happening in the sector. Now we go to the manufacturers. It's interesting that the intermediate tax keeps coming up in the discussion. And I remember clearly that when it was introduced, the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industry was among the first people to defend the tax. I remember you telling us that we needed to take the pain so that at least we could the government could manage to plug the deficit that they've got. And recently we then told us that this is actually eating into company profits. So what we need to understand from you, because clearly you are the manufacturers, if you don't get forex, we don't get forex in turn because you're not exporting. So what we need to understand from you is how much are your members getting from the central bank, and how much do your members need from the central bank? Then after that, what we need to understand from you is your final position on the tax, on the 2 cent tax, because there have been distortions, and today you're up for you're for the tax, tomorrow you're saying no, the tax shouldn't go beyond 2018. So we need a clear position of how manufacturers feel about the tax.
With reference to the text, thank you, moderator. I think if you read the statement, it was quite clear, because we did articulate to say we already know the government has got the deficit. So we understand why the government actually is looking for more money, and the purpose of the tax is to direct it towards the informal sector. So we said we understand the principle and we accept it. But what we said was we need to renegotiate it before it was implemented. Unfortunately, before anything happened, the government went ahead and gazetted it. Because our position was that yes, there's a way you can do it, but without hurting the poor and already overtaxed companies. So that it's more directed towards who you want to target, and also you then get the money that you want. So this has been our position. If you go back to the statement, it clearly says that. So unfortunately, like we're saying, government didn't went on and gazetted. Now we're getting these problems, which we already had indicated right from the start that these are the problems that you have from this text. So we are happy that government is saying that they're looking into this. So we're waiting for that consultation to happen. We hope again things will not move without actually coming back to the stakeholders, so that we can just give our perspectives. Because you see, the thing with some of these issues is if we don't consult and there are perspectives to be heard from different stakeholders, you're going to feel those things when you've already implemented, which then you now have to backtrack and it's not inefficient. But if you consult, you hear about the issues that can affect the various stakeholders, and you actually put something that's effective. Which is something that we believe that we need to do in this country. Do more. Consult first before we implement some of these measures. And then coming to the issue of supplies, as you are aware, up to September, I think there were no challenges with supplies. Probably started in October. And as we were discussing earlier on, we know where that problem was exacerbated from. It's to do with the tobacco selling season coming to an end. But of course, there are structural problems that we've already had, which Prof has always been talking about. But then what happens is you have what you call like a perfect storm, where that problem that is already existing in the economy now hits a point where we've got this economic cycle. Then the currency that we had was not inadequate to give to companies. And I would say the worsening part of the perfect storm was then the policy pronouncement. If you recall, the also happened around the same time. So this all just worsened an already a bad situation where, for instance, supplies of certain commodities were low but adequate. But then when the panic buying set in, people and they were speculative hoarding and so forth, that took away all the stocks that were available in the market, and we had an immediate chaos in terms of and also that we also believe that Western even the open market rates and everything. So this is the challenge that we're having. It's a currency problem driven, but that problem is also a symptom driven by the fiscal discipline issues that we need to deal with. So we believe that that's where we need to go. Under normal circumstances, it was highlighted, this is a normal cycle that we normally would go through. If we had access to external credit, this is when external credit should be injected into the economy for this last quarter, so that we reduce the impact of the traffic that results from inadequate currency. But now, until we resolve our external debt issues, the data and all sorts of things, it's going to be very difficult to access that sort of support. But one of the things that we also need to take cognizance of, there is a way to mitigate, as I always say, that in spite of those challenges, sometimes we must deal with what we have. Normally it's the cotton that should be taking care of a bit of this deficit. If we were able to go back to the cotton levels that we achieved, record cotton production levels, even without value adding it, was we understand that it's ginned and exported between July and December. So what it will do is it will inject at least another 100, 200 million into this economy, which is adequate to at least mitigate the problem. But if we don't sort out the cotton issue again, we'll have everything coming to a head. So in terms of recommendation, this is what we feel. So at the moment, we understand that from previous pronouncements, the RBZ governor is trying to access a facility for injecting into this economy. But challenges, unfortunately, is that we're almost coming to the end of the year. So there will not be much we'll be able to do, perhaps to just end the year and we have production for the end of the year and hopefully a good start to 2019. Because we still believe that, in spite of everything, the economy is still in a very good state. There's a lot of pain. People must appreciate that. When we look at our members, when you look where they are, it's really more the injection of currency. They are ready, the operations are ready to start producing. So it's an issue of then the country being able to access currency from somewhere. But we believe that if the structural issues that have been highlighted are taken care of, it will ensure that 2019 at least we start off better again. Then, but if like last year, years are warning, September 2019 is coming. If we do not take care of the issues that happen, that are cyclical, we'll have this problem.
And allocations?
Sorry?
Allocations, how much allocating and how much?
Well, allocations right now, they are way below even maybe 30% of requirements. That's why the supplies are explore across the board in all commodities. We require about 200, I think we need 200 million, 240 million thereabouts for the manufacturers only. That's what I think, that's the ballpark figure that we require. And we do have also backlog payments that need to. At the moment, we're still trying to come up with a figure, but it will be anything.
Overall, 600 million.
Yeah, 600
If I can come, if you look at the monetary policy statement, there's an external, private sector external position there of 2 billion.
2 billion.
That's what I actually wanted to say.
That
That
line
is
is
600
2 billion US
Over
dollars.
2 billion.
Yeah.
That's right, supplier credit, which is private sector needs to cover up.
Yeah, so that's, but look, we're still saying, to be realistic, about 600 million will be available. We'll keep going, but that's the big goal that we have. So basically, now when you look at that number, and I would like to really try and emphasize this point, especially when people are then saying manufacturers are not supporting the economy, they're sabotaging the economy. People went into the wall to make sure that product will continue to be supplied to this economy. They could have stopped a long time ago. They did not need to generate such large credit, but it was to ensure that goods continued to be supplied. So unfortunately, any creditor can imagine that knowing that Zimbabwe is now owing 2 billion, they will just put your stop supply, and that's where we are.
So, well, the manufacturers are saying winter is coming for consumers. the constituency that she represents, Madame Kofi, has been the hardest hit by the currency shortages and the price hikes. But your constituency is also guilty of hoarding. Because if people had continued buying with discipline like they've been doing all along, we probably wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. So what we need to understand from you as a consumer representative is what are some of the issues, because the predominant issue has been people are afraid of going back to 2008. So the genuine buyers were not buying and hoarding for speculative purposes. We're buying just to keep well stocked so that they can at least cover the festive, probably up to February. So what do you think was the problem with your constituency? And do you think that the situation is stabilized, or as soon as we see cooking oil being put into the supermarkets, people are just going to go and grab the cooking oil until retailers even put rations on basics? What do you think is going to go on as the situation goes?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start from before we started using the multi-currency system. It's now been over almost 10 years, isn't it? When we had that problem with our Zim dollar, then we automatically moved into the US dollar and then into the multi-currency regime. And it looked like the situation had normalized, when in fact it hadn't. Production levels did not go up to expected levels. Manufacturers continued ailing. Yes, they did indicate from time to time through the surveys that they carried out to say, production levels are going up a little bit and so forth, but we never really became 100% self-reliant as an economy. And consumers have not had confidence in this economy ever since we dollarized. What made it worse was the 2016 introduction of the bond notes. I remember RBZ carrying out consultations with the consumers, and consumers did indicate right from the start that they did not want to use the bond notes because it was never going to be 1:1. But the monetary authorities insisted that the bond note was 1:1. I think we all remember the jingles, the adverts, the noise that was made about it. And for some time, we sort of, lived in the comfort that yes, indeed, it seems to be 1:1. But I still remember the noises that consumers made in 2016 to say they did not want the bond notes. Now, time has taken over. 2017, 2018, 2017, the US dollar disappeared little by little. And we all know the reasons, because it was never our money really. And we were living on borrowed money, and we failed to produce. First of all, we failed even to control the exports of the money. People were hoarding the US dollar, taking it outside the country in suitcases. Why did we not control it right at the beginning? So that was our major problem as an economy. Secondly, introduction of the bond note, because now we no longer have that forex. We now want to try and control the situation. But still consumers are losing confidence little by little. Come elections, we have a new dispensation. People are not yet confident in the we cannot, sideline the political side of things, because it also had its own issues. And it's the consumer who has no confidence in all of this, no confidence in the economy, in the fiscal, in the monetary, in the politics, everything. Come the statement, the 2% transaction tax, and everyone went into a panic mode. That is the consumer for you. The consumer will always panic if statements are made all over. If they are not well constructed, there is a very high risk of bringing people into a panic mode. And this is why immediately after that pronouncement, we saw people hoarding, panic buying. Who did not hoard? Who does not have a case of sugar in their house? Who doesn't have cooking oil in their house. You know, because consumers have learned from 2008 and they don't want that. They needed to secure themselves, especially where food is concerned. Detergents, soaps, all the basic commodities. What then happened, because things have been hoarded and there's lots of panic buying, we saw the disappearance of most commodities from the shelves. There was nothing. Shortages looming again, price hikes, price disparities. Now if you go into supermarkets, you realize where one is selling for $2, the other one is selling for $6 for the same product. Same manufacturer, but different retail shops. There's multi-tier pricing, which already started in 2016 when we introduced the bond note. How can we have different prices for the same commodity and still claim that it's 1:1? If you want to buy something in the US dollar, it's costing so much. If you are using EcoCash, it's so much. If it's bank transfer, it's so much. One wallet, so much. I mean, cash, bond, its own price. That's disorder in any economy. We need order. We need to start again and start with the right things, right controls in place. Let's not get overexcited when we have the US dollar and forget that we need to produce. The industry needs to produce. For as long as we don't have our own local production in place, we can forget about ever coming back or getting back our economy. We need producers to be more serious about production levels so that we have adequate supplies domestically and have enough to export. Once our exports are more than the imports, we are sorted. We will forget about this problem.
So it's interesting that the consumer has blamed everyone but the consumer. Because it's an understandable point, because they've been hurt before, once bitten, twice shy. This has happened before, and the lack of confidence is not really the consumer's fault. But now we go to the retailers. The men holding the bottle of cooking oil and rationing the bottle of cooking oil. What I want to understand from the retailers is, do you think prices of basic commodities are going to ever come down again? And do you feel that we've got enough stocks for the festive season? Because despite the economy not having money and everything else happening, we all know that this festive season, there's heavy spending during the festive season. Are you covered to cover the festive season? Then lastly, why do we have the multiple pricing systems? Because we now have retailers who are charging in purely US dollars. They've actually been indexing on the US dollar. So if you get into a shop and something is going for $15, you just need to divide it by 3 so that you actually find the actual price of the product. So over to you, Mr.
Thank you. I'm actually taking off from where my brother left. Yes, as the CZ, we have plus or minus 600 members across the country, and of course some of the flagship brands include the likes of Jopis, Usas, Badelas, Babas, Italy, Babas, Bachelis, again, Patient Care, Port Holdings, etc. So the first challenge that is on the market right now is pricing. There is a serious concern on how do you price your products and still remain profitable and viable without getting your value eroded. So this is actually seen a lot of players taking a cautious approach as far as pricing is concerned. But whether we are going to have sufficient products in sufficient quantities for the festive season, I think my brother Jalongo will be able to tell us from the manufacturer side, because when the situation changed at the beginning of October, you actually have suppliers also trying to cushion themselves from
just to interject, I actually thought you'd then tell us about the suspension of the SIS 122 and how that helps you as retailers to just help restock? Because
Yeah.
there's been a restocking problem, yes?
Yeah, I was actually going to come to that. So, for the local suppliers, we have got trading terms having to be changed to from 7 days, 14 days, 50 days, suddenly to COD payment up front. And whereas some also are demanding US dollars, and those that are still accepting the RTGs and the bond notes, with high prices, understandably, just to try and cushion themselves. Because remember, when the manufacturers are getting less than 30% of their foreign currency requirement, it means the 70% has got to be sourced from somewhere if the manufacturing industry has got to continue operating. And that somewhere is unfortunately become the parallel market, where rates are not predictable. The challenge you have there is that when you source from foreign currency from the parallel market, it's not documented. No one is going to give you an invoice or a receipt that have sold US dollars to you. And when Zimra comes through, they're going through the books, it's still a challenge. So we are in a vicious cycle, but that vicious cycle, I agree with Mr. Jawangwe and Prof that it has got to be located back on the fiscal side. So we need to sort out the fiscal deficit, because without that, I think we will continue to have pressure on the monetary side. I understand the pressure that my good governor, Dr. Mabujla, is going through right now, where you've got this economy that is looking up to you as a source of foreign currency allocations. He is actually under a very difficult situation, and yet, if you look closely, the pressure is on money creation. The moment we will continue to create money into the economy, and yet we are not generating more or rather sufficient foreign currency through exports, foreign direct investment, it will continue to pile pressure on the monetary authorities. And now we have got a scenario where some players have actually literally resorted to multi-tier pricing as a way of an exit strategy, because you have a price in US dollar, and you also have a price in RTGs and bond notes. We are in this situation at a time when 98% of transactions are going through electronic and mobile. After we went out and promoted the use of plastic money, and now we are in this vicious cycle. So it's actually a very difficult operating environment, and we are quite hopeful that as the budget is coming up, the minister should this time should have done proper consultations, because when he came through and attacked the bond notes and attacked the RTGs and indicated that the bond notes were going to be removed by December 31st, that caused panic in the market, because the bond note is actually been holding for it. We have got plus or minus 400 million bond notes, and we've got plus or minus 9 billion in RTGs. So you cannot touch the bond notes without addressing the RTGs balances. You just have to combine the two and come up with a solution for the two if you want to have stability in the economy. Failure to do that, you have got a situation of panic that was created, and everyone wanted to offload the RTGs balance. Everyone wanted to offload the bond notes that they were holding on to. And what did they do? The majority of people went to the black market to buy the US dollars. So literally we've got a scenario where the parallel market was cleaned up. Most people went there to clean up whatever that they had. So there is need to restore confidence, and this is something that will actually take a national approach. It's not going to be something that is going to be done sectorial. We need a national approach to restore confidence in our people. And actually, if you are saying the bond note and the RTGs is now back at 1:1 to the US dollar, there has got to be all those fundamentals backing that, so that an ordinary man in the street will believe that. Failure to do that will continue to have problems. Right now, we need at least an injection of about 2 billion into the economy if we wanted to restore the 1:1 parity. Industry, for example, they continue to require more foreign currency because they're into production. As a country, my sister spoke about the bond notes. Yes, we should admit that the bond notes also played a critical part. For example, ever since the bond notes were introduced, we actually have realized about 12.6 billion in exports. And again, in a way, it actually came through to stop externalization. Remember, at that particular time, we had people withdrawing large sums of US dollars. You could go to an ATM, swipe, take out any amount that you wished to take out, and all that money went out. So Zimbabwe using the US dollar in a region which is not using the US dollar, it became a source of the precious currency, which is so loved by anybody in other countries. So this is the challenge that we find ourselves right now.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. What we now need to understand from the panel is, do you feel our government has got the willpower to stop printing nonsense money? Because this has happened before. We are not just coming from the air and saying this. No, we've got a history of printing nonsense money and then not knowing what to do with nonsense money and having an economy explode because we printed nonsense money. And by the looks of things, we are actually in the running for what happened in 2008. So first we would like to find out from the good professor, because we've also done consultancy work with government, so you would have an insider's point of view of, do you think we've got the willpower to stop doing this? And Madame Hoff mentioned a very important point. She said that what we need is also a political situation. So what do you think we should do? Do we change governments, or does government change its stance? Because we clearly cannot continue doing this as an economy. This cycle cannot happen twice in the same generation. It just becomes nonsense. So what do you think we should do?
No, you are absolutely right. This cycle cannot happen twice in the same generation, within 10 years almost. So I think the first point all our colleagues have made the same point, is that government expenditure, fiscal deficit is the main culprit. And the question you're asking is that does the government have the political will to do so? Well, I was at the pre-budget seminar of Parliament, and Ministry of Finance presented his numbers for 2018, and according to his numbers, in the latest for September 2018 is actually he has achieved a zero deficit. Now, if that is actually true, and I see no reason why we should not believe him, his target is also for October, November and December to minimize the size of the deficit so that it's close to zero. So I think that this is a significant change from the past. It is clear that there seems to be a political will to actually move in a different direction, and they have got a good implementer in the finance minister who is dealing with that issue. Now, where I disagree with him is that what our problem is expenditure reduction. We have too much expenditure. So we should be focusing on reducing the expenditure of government rather than looking at additional ways of raising revenue. So we can raise more revenue, but first let's look at expenditure reduction. So that's the first point that needs to be made. The second point I want to make is, let's try and address the fundamentals. We've got into a culture where the Reserve Bank spends its time allocating foreign exchange. This is not the role of a Reserve Bank at all, anywhere in the world or in Africa. If you go to Zambia, if you go to South Africa, this is not what the Reserve Bank does. Foreign exchange is allocated to people, not allocated, is, let's say, bought and sold by people who need it through an open, regulated foreign exchange market. That's how it is done. It's the same in South Africa, it's the same in Zambia, it's the same in Mozambique, it's the same in East Africa. We have got to create a legal foreign exchange market where those people who have got foreign exchange, like exporters, like people who are bringing in foreign direct investment, or the diaspora, more than $1 billion they're bringing in, they can put all that money onto a table legally, openly, and the people who need the foreign exchange, they bid for that, and then in that market is cleared and a rate comes out of that. And that is the exchange rate between whatever you want to call it, RTGS and real US dollars. Let's not dream about looking for, I'm sorry to, for what the colleague has said, we are not getting $2 billion from anywhere. And we are not getting $10 billion for anywhere. So let's not stop dreaming that this is US dollars. I've said repeatedly, they are not US dollars. RTGS is local currency. Let us form a open platform, a foreign exchange market which allows people transparently to see what the rate is, so that if a pharmaceutical importer imports $1 worth of pharmaceuticals, the market gives him a rate, whatever it is, 3 or 4, he can multiply it by that and do normal pricing. Under the current system, we don't know what the rate is, and that's the reason why there's all this chaos that is happening. So let us create a normal foreign exchange market in Zimbabwe, like every other country in Africa. That's the first step.
But sorry, do we have the right fundamentals, Professor? Because if we are going to create an open market like that, is that not going to lead into an inflation spiral? Because when we are looking at such a market, you obviously require a situation where the US dollar, the hard currency, is somewhere where we know it will actually come out and be traded, as you have mentioned. But in a situation where we've got 9 billion in RTGS balances and then 400 million bond loans, how much would we need in terms of the US dollar that will come into the market?
So can I very quickly give him the solution? It's quite straightforward actually. Our total earnings are roughly $5.5 billion, right? Now, if we went the way that economists would recommend, we go the way I'm saying, total liberalization. But you're right, if you totally liberalize, you will get inflation. So there is an intermediate path which has been discussed with the Business Association, CZI, and all of us. We have been discussing it, which is that we have made a calculation that we roughly need about $2.5 billion to import the essential imports, which includes fuel, power, the durum wheat for the bread, the cooking oil, etc. There are about 6 pharmaceuticals, there are about 6 or 7 items. So if we ask the exporters to surrender 50% of their export earnings at 1-to-1, we will be able to generate $2.5 billion, and that can be allocated for those 6 or 7 items to keep price stability. The balance of the money, which is, I'm saying, 5.5 is our, roughly speaking, our earnings, plus the $1 billion in diaspora, we should put on a transparent platform. So it's a hybrid system in which both you create a foreign exchange market, but at the same time, you actually maintain price stability. It's a process. Now, just to give you more confidence, this is not my idea and we are not getting it out of nowhere. The Nigerians have already done this extremely successfully. So I would recommend that you should have a look at the Nigerian auction system. It has been in place for 2 years. And it started off 2 years ago, so you are right that if everybody who has $10 billion is allowed to bid for that money, the rate will go crazy. You are absolutely right. So what the Nigerians did is that you start off with a restricted market. So first you have half your foreign exchange earnings for essential items at 1-to-1. That's number one. That maintains price stability. Then for the balance of the amount, the Nigerians, they had a restricted market, so you can say that only people who come into these priority 1, 2, 3 can bid for it. Not everybody. If you want to buy a Porsche, you can go and spend your own money. Okay? Or if you want to buy some luxury, you go and spend your own money. But you have a limited market where people can bid for it, and it has been done extremely successfully. In the last 2 years, because of their auction system, they have attracted $11 billion in foreign exchange into the country. So it is possible to implement a hybrid system which has a partially liberalized market, but which at the same time has a 1-to-1 also in it as a temporary measure. And over time, these will converge, but it will take some time. So that's to answer your question.
So,
Okay, to come in there, we have had that system here, although not officially.
Yes.
When Leonard Tumba was the Reserve Bank governor in this country, 1999-2000, and he always says to me, Temba, things never ran away. I had my retention, and I was taking my retention, and I let the market decide the balance. It's not anything new. Leonard Tumba, that's how he ran it. He ran it this way. It's happened here. And Leonard did not threaten people, but it was only on the coming in of Gideon Gono in 2003, 2004 that things started to, when you threaten the market, when you start arresting the market. Okay? Remember, these foreign currency shortages did not start in 2004. It started in 1997. Yeah? That's when we started having foreign currency problems. Okay? And then we had that rate that Tsumba would take his, and then he actually rebalanced, the market sorted itself out.
That's it.
If I were an importer, I would call it a tobacco merchant. and say, have you got currency? And that sort of thing. And then for as long as you don't print money and push it through
Yes.
to consumers,
Exactly.
that limits the rate, okay? And at the moment, we are actually at a situation where prices are beginning to come down because the consumer hasn't got the money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was in TM yesterday, okay? There were no queues. So I said to the manager, why are there no queues in TM? He says, because we haven't got cooking oil and sugar. Okay? And I said, if we had cooking oil and sugar, says you would have all these people vending, coming to speculate. And I said, what about the other? He said, but people have earned their salaries. And from their salaries, they can't be holding forever and ever. Okay? So there would be a price discovery. Okay?
Exactly.
If
That's the
you,
whole point.
that's
Price
right.
discovery.
Okay?
Yeah.
But if you look at from January up to now, see, okay, when government supported the 14 basic commodities, isn't it? Okay? There was no runaway inflation. They supported the 14 basic commodities through the Reserve Bank at 1-to-1. Okay? And all of us who were outside the other thing carried on doing what they were going to do. But there was no runaway. So that hybrid system is not new to this country. It's been happening from January up to now,
Yeah.
and it's been happening during Leonard Sumba's time.
But we need it to be official. That's what we want to say.
It's actually important that you raise up the Tumba system and the threats to the market, because I guess in trying to contain the power market, the central bank has now, through government, has gazetted a new law that threatens to jail cash dealers for a minimum of 10 years. They've also stipulated the amount of foreign exchange that is supposed to be on your body. If you've got anything above that, and the police have reason to suspect that you've got anything above the stipulated amount, you face arrest. So I want to understand, do you think this is a viable solution to what's happening, threatening the market?
From what perspective, we've got two things. We've said let's lift SI 122 to allow goods to come in. So where are those people going to get any money? They don't have any money. It was to allow. We thought if we are not getting any allocations, it's for the temporarily to allow for the goods to come in, those that have free cash. So unfortunately, we are closing the door on that market. Like I've highlighted, manufacturers are not getting. They're only getting less than 30% of their requirements. So now you've outlawed that they find an option. So all we could do is end up closing the entire market. If there's no cause, who would risk going to jail for 10 years? People are just going to close those factories. So we believe that sometimes the actions, people have not thought out the implications. Because when there's now personal threats on people, people are just going to close. Even those that are trying to keep operating, they'll close because there's those personal threats. There's no available route for companies to access the foreign currency. So now the country could actually shut down when we have the forex in the country, because we've not created an avenue by which companies can access those that have. Because remember, when the measures were made to separate the nostrils, what it now means, the person who's generating the currency can accumulate their currency for as long as they want. So how then are we going to create a way that this person who says, look, I've got this currency, it's excess, how do I give it to you? I'm not going to give it to you at 1-to-1 because I'm going to lose. So I'll just sit with it. So what will happen then? We'll then need to come up with another measure again to try and deal with that. So just from the manufacturer's perspective, we believe that this could be really a big issue, a big problem.
If I can fill in there, you can threaten people, but then when you threaten people, people stop doing things, okay? Right? And then what actually happens is then you go back into the market and you say, please start doing this. And then the market punishes you because it knows you are desperate. Okay? And secondly, when you threaten people, the market goes underground. When the market goes underground, the price can be anything. Are you with me? So this can have serious unintended consequences. It's like price control. 50% reduction in that price. It had unintended consequences, isn't it? It emptied everything. So the danger with this is you threaten people and people will close. But then you don't want to see people close. You want them to come up again. But when they come up again, the market will punish. because the market will know that you're desperate. Okay, right? It's about doing the right thing at the right time. It's like even talking about this bond and US dollar, okay? Right. I know people didn't like it. 2016, 2017 and so forth, and 2018. But let's look at the reality. What was the differential between the US dollar and the bond rate for 2 years? Not much. Okay? Shouldn't then, at the time you started this bond and RTGS, given it an exchange rate, devalue that compared to the US dollar? Isn't it? Okay? You know what I'm saying? Most of economic decisions are a question of timing and opportunity. Okay? You talk about Nigeria running this thing and when it converges, okay? Nigeria will definitely converge. And do you know why Nigeria will converge? Because of the rise in the oil prices. You see what I'm saying? Because people believe that Nigeria will generate the foreign currency. You see? Yeah. Okay, right. But I think what we are doing here is we basically talking about taking a bandage and patching things. Okay, and then applying chemotherapy where there's cancer. Okay, right. I think the fundamental thing is, can this economy survive without international support? I think that's a fundamental question that is going to be asked. Okay, and if it can't, what are we doing as a country to gain that international support so that we can get international funding back and all the IFIs back? That's the fundamental question. Okay, right? We can patch up for a few months, the floors open and we're all happy. Come September next year, we are back in the country. Okay, so can we talk about sustainability? What is sustainable in this environment to get this economy?
Yeah, and maybe just to support you, again, this is dealing with the symptoms, the legal measures, the measures to make it illegal for people to change currency. Because until we start going back to deal with what are the key issues. Because you see, when you deal with problems, you deal with them at different levels. You've got your long-term problem to deal with the fundamentals. Then you need your medium-term sort of address for those other symptoms, but that you can deal with. But because if you don't do that, what will happen is, as we're saying, it's a patient who's got malaria, and they develop different symptoms to show that they've got malaria. They'll have a fever, they'll have a temperature, so they've got a headache. We give them a painkiller. All they're doing is temporarily dealing with them, but the underlying problem will keep getting worse and worse. Now, which is why in conversations that we have with Prof, is that, as I keep saying, the economy is not in a bad place, it's how we manage it. And it's how we manage what we currently have. We've had a record tobacco system. We're having record gold output. So all those things become, the issue then becomes, how well are we utilizing that forex? The problem that also we've said is that in this country, forex has been considered as a public good. So in other words, forex all goes into a pool and who gets it first is the one that goes. So what would then happen is the person who has generated it starts failing to access their own currency. So we're starting to believe that we know we're going to generate maybe 5 billion of currency, forex in a year. We need to be planning also for that, even in the budget. How are we going to use this 5 billion? Because you see, there cannot be so much available for pharmaceuticals, or be so much available for different things. So if you then use that which was going to pharmaceuticals elsewhere to bring in cars or bring in other things, it means you're not going to have any pharmaceuticals. So that's going back to trying to deal with what you have. Then perhaps we proceed forward. But until we do that, we'll have these discussions again. We are discussing symptoms. But we also should be discussing to say, where are we in terms of what within this budget is going to be dealing with the problem that we faced this year, so that we can track it, to make sure that we are not going to have the same problem next year. Be it what have been our key imports, was we know foreign currencies is an issue. So there are two things. One, what's been the fiscal deficit that we've had this year? What's the target for next year? So we can track it to make sure that there's an improvement. Then on imports that will be generated, what are we doing with regards to our top 10 imports, then we have a plan which we track. So sometimes, for instance, we look at it and say, maybe fuel, there's nothing we can do with this fuel. But there's always something. Look at it, if we had a public transport system, would we need as many copies on the road? I don't think so. If we allowed the importation of maybe hybrid or electric vehicles, would we need as much fuel? So the actions that can be taken on any of the areas that we've got. But until right now, before we start a new year, we start targeting those things, we'll be in the same boat. Doing exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I like what you are talking about, and I think it links with the sustainable economy that we want. It's all about sustainable development. How well are we doing in whatever we can do best? If we believe we are very good at agriculture, how well are we doing in terms of value addition, really getting hold of all the important export markets? We know that our country can do very well even in organic farming. How well are we doing that? Because when you look at organic products all over the world, they are highly rated, highly priced. Why don't we go there? We know our country is Zimbabwe. We are one of the most educated countries in the world. Are we exporting education to other countries? Why is no one talking about exporting education? We know other countries that are not doing so well in education, they actually export education even to us. People are importing education from other countries. Extra lessons, you see people going on the internet. Why don't we specialize in all those things that we can do best? Minerals, we continue to talk about, we need to value add, we need to sell finished products, but how much effort are we putting into all that? We are not putting enough effort. We continue to export raw products which do not derive forex to the country. Let's export whatever we can do well as a nation. By doing that, we'll be able to grow our economy, we produce, we end up with more exports than the imports.
Maybe you want to chip in before we go back?
Oh yeah, I would like to talk about the informality or informalization in the economy. I think this is going to be dealt with. And one of the steps that I think we need to take urgently is to ensure that all the businesses that are outside the formal sector are registered, because we can't control their activities. And then secondly, the action on the money changes, I think is the right action. We can't then allow on one end, government has got political will to bring sanity on the market, and when they've taken the action, we then attack them for having taken the right action. Because the cash balance themselves, they've always been holding a ransom in any way, whichever way we would like it. So they've got an exit strategy of actually getting licenses to operate the period changes. So
Since in our last discussion, there is a lot of micromanagement of issues and micromanagement of the economy. Right? We are not living in the international world, right? And unless we get out of that mentality of micromanaging, we are not getting anywhere. South Africa 3 weeks ago, Cyril Ramaphosa had an investors conference, and he was talking about big money and big capital. Entrepreneurs coming because there is demand and the supply of product. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to say to ourselves, do we want to play in an international world and in an international economy? Okay? Right? Once we set the fundamentals right, businessmen will find their level. Okay? Right? I don't think in this day and age we should be talking about allocation of foreign currency and that sort of thing. That sends the wrong signals to any investor. Okay? Right? It sends the wrong signals to any investor. Okay? And then secondly, I believe yes, our competitive advantage is fine. Secondly, let's stop overrating our education. Because if we were that educated, then we would have solved a lot of our problems. We can't even farm at this point in time. We talk about farming, we can't even farm. Okay? Right? Second, we talk about farming and going to export, but you don't understand the international relationship with the value chain. Are you with me? Okay? You take flowers, for example. You go and grow flowers here and try and export them. You won't. Because the intellectual capital, the seed, is controlled from Holland. So you've got to have relationships, okay? So when international players come into a market, they come into a market because they then create a market for a product. I think what we need to do is to fundamentally change our mindset as Zimbabweans and change our mindset as government and stop micromanaging.
Thank you. Prof.
That is very powerfully stated. I think that we need to divide it up into what we can do in the short term and what we need to look at in the long term. And I think what my colleague is talking about is very important, mindset. These are long-term issues. So for instance, our president has said that Zimbabwe is open for business. But the reality is if a businessman comes over here, this is a highly over-regulated economy. All the ministries, regulators, they've got licenses, permits, fees, all kinds of things which may make it very difficult for a business person to actually do business. And I've been working under the Ease of Doing Business program for the last 4 years. We've made some progress, but I can tell you there's a resistance all around from government agencies to actually making it easy for people to do business in Zimbabwe. That's the reality. So mindset change, removing over-regulation, making it easier for people to actually do business, that's critical. And not having this view that you cannot control the market. We tried to control the market through price controls, and what happened? The shelves were all empty. So price controls don't work. Over-regulation does not work. You have to use the market as your friend, not as your enemy. That's the key to it all. So I think in the long term, I fully agree with my colleague over here. In the short term, there are certain things in the budget, on the fiscal side and on the monetary side that we would like to see between even now and December. The first point is that we should aim at a zero deficit. We should reduce government expenditure seriously in all the areas that the Minister of Finance has already recommended in the Transitional Stabilization Plan, and we should even go beyond that. So that's very important. And these should be quantified. You don't say that we are going to curtail the allocation of vehicles. No curtail. Why don't we say no moratorium? We're going to have a moratorium on new vehicles to government and parastatals for 12 months. Then we know exactly where we stand. So we are tightening our belt, the government is tightening its belt. So we need all the measures he has, but I would recommend that they go further. And then we can talk about some additional revenue generation measures, because then people will say, well, the government is tightening its belt, then we also have to face certain things. So fiscal side is key. If we don't deal with the fiscal side, nothing is going to succeed. Then we go to the monetary side, and I've already mentioned that, I'm not going to repeat it. I think we do have a solution, and I'm glad to say that Mr. Ndebele says that in fact we in Zimbabwe did have such a system way back when Governor Shumba was there. The system is there. It's not necessary for us to have 2 billion or 10 billion or any $1 billion in reserves to start the interim process of moving towards a more liberalized market where there's price discovery, where people in the market know what the official price is, and then they can build it into their pricing. And then the Reserve Bank goes completely out of foreign exchange allocation. We create a market which is open, which is transparent, which is an interbank market. The people who are earning foreign exchange, they freely sell it, and that will give them an incentive, by the way. You know, if you note that why is industry increasing its exports? Because they are able to sell some of their exports at 2, 3 or 4 to 1, and that's become more profitable. So let's make it official. It's already happening. All these things are happening, but too much is clandestine because we are too regulated. Let's make it open. Let's have open, clean, regulated systems, and we will I'm sure, because you see, money moves very quickly. It can move within 24 hours. So if we open up the monetary system in the proper way, in the correct way, after due consultation, and consultation is very important. We have the consultation, we agree, and we move forward. You will find that within a week things will start stabilizing. It's not a matter of months or years, because money moves fast. It moves within hours. So I'm confident if these measures are put in place, we will have an improvement in the situation between now and December.
Okay. Well, mine is just to say that I think the market requires confidence building, and what the monetary authorities and what the government is doing doesn't lend much in terms of building that confidence. Between now and maybe towards year end, at least if we do see government walking the talk in terms of reducing the government deficit, then the market will not be given to speculative behaviors. And I think, Zimbabwe shouldn't be a complex economy. We do have earnings of 5.1 billion, which is coming into Zimbabwe. That is more than what Zambia is getting. In terms of what we're importing, yes, we still have a deficit, but it's something that we can work on. If the industry can start manufacturing, we don't then have to import as much. If we put the Buy Zimbabwe campaign, it means we don't have to import as much. So it's not that difficult, but we do have a problem of confidence. Pronouncements that are made need to be shown by the following of actions. When we're saying we want to reduce the government deficit, we then should see extra expenditure coming from the government. So I think, in short, we need to work on confidence building, and also as a population, we also need to look at how much are we spending the foreign currency. Whenever we use our money to buy a foreign denominated product, it's an export that we've done. We need to consider that. Is it priority? Can't we have used something which is global in that sense?
Mine, I think some of the key issues have been highlighted, but the mindset issue, for me, I feel it's an immediate one, actually. It's not even long-term problem, because it's affecting how people are dealing with issues now. And the very first thing, the Vision 2030, because sometimes when people don't have a vision and they're not looking forward, this is when you look at things that are not very serious. It's our vision. So the president's vision, whether you like it or not, that's our vision. Unless you have a better one. If you don't, that's our vision. So when you have Vision 2030, the issue is how are you fitting into Vision 2030? To what extent, what does it mean for you today in terms of getting to Vision 2030? So that's what we must do, because it has an implication in terms of the growth rate that you need. At the moment, I attended a function where I was asking people about, have you browsed the stabilization program? They had it. What's the growth rate that is required in 2019? They didn't know. It's 9.7%. So if the whole economy knows it's 9.7%, we all must target 9.7% or 10%. Let's just say 10%, because that's roughly what we need to be achieving up to 2030 in order to achieve the Vision 2030. So that's the first thing. Those are the first things. Then the other issue is to do with, we know we're a forex dependent country. So all our actions in the interim have to be about how do we ensure that we manage the forex that we have properly. Because we have to be selfish about it. We don't print it, but we are very much dependent upon it. So it will address all these things about government expenditure and everything else. So actions must be about the action must be either preserving currency or helping to generate currency or saving currency. That must be the guidelines. And everything being targeted to say, look, what does Vision 2030 mean to me? Do we even know what population will have in 2030? We should know. What is the protein consumption that we'll have in 2030? If we don't, what's the cereal consumption? What's the pharmaceutical consumption? Because it will have an bearing now on what level of investments must they be doing in order for us to get where we are. Because when you start looking at those numbers, you start seeing that some of these things that we are doing are really not necessary. We are going to miss our target. By the way, Vision 2030 is also what we must achieve in order for us to achieve Agenda 2063. So the problem sometimes is, well, we think each year is going to come, each day is going to come, and it's okay. But no. We have a responsibility as the current generations to prepare the foundation for the next generations. So for me, that's the key.
Thank you very much. I think mine is also based on mindset change. We need to be able to plan long term. Let's not be short-term planners all the time. We need to love Zimbabwe, to love our economy. We need to support our government, the efforts that are being made. We need to support even the issues to do with Vision 2030. As he says, it's our vision as a nation. Let's support it. Let's see the goodness in it. And let's stop spreading the negative. I think one of our greatest problems in this country is we focus too much on the negative issues and we forget to move on. We forget to manufacture. We forget to produce. We just want to keep importing and always be crying. Let's not kill the confidence within ourselves as a people. We are all consumers, by the way, in one way or the other. Let's have that confidence in our economy and let's build on it. And above all, I would say let's reward innovators, people who are there to produce, to value add, to manufacture. Let those people be rewarded more than anybody else, because those are the people who are actually building this country. And this is where our vision is anchored, in promoting growth for the economy. This economy will only grow if we start growing, if we start to value add, to produce, and we make no apologies for our education, because all over the world people are talking about the great minds that we have, educated people in this country, and they are all willing to employ Zimbabweans. So let's even export the good things that we have. The education needs to be also exported to other countries because it's a big asset. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in as much as we may be having challenges, but I think we are on the right path, and we just need to have better coordination in terms of how we focus on the challenges that we face as a country. But more importantly, we need to be long-term. We've been consumed so much by this short-termism, and we forget that we've got the future that we need to build, and that future is premised on a social contract, as it were, that is going to be binding among us Zimbabweans, so that we can focus on how we can revive the economy and as well improve social services and also bring about political sanity. So I think the economy is projected to grow by 6%, having been revised from 4.5%, and that on its own is actually a positive, and we need them to come up with say an industrial development plan which targets at the foundation of reviving local industry and import substitute and value add, because those are very key pillars. If we wanted to earn foreign currency, certainly we need to value add. If we also wanted to reduce the consumption of foreign currency through imports, we have to import substitute, so that the domestic production is actually elevated to a level where it can actually not only meet local demand but even surpass it, so that we've got surplus to export. We may actually be facing challenges, say panic buying, price stability. All these are short-term challenges that we actually face in our quest to actually charter the long journey. Jabangwe spoke about the TSP. This actually has got to be taken out, broken down, so that the people out there can be able to narrate it, understand it, and consume it, so that they actually have a buy-in. So it has not been taken out. Yes, it's true that the majority of people have not opened the document, but what do we need to do? Let's take it out and educate, so that the people have got the right awareness through our targeted programs.
All right. Any additions?
No, I've got to
Thank you so much. That was it from us. Everyone suggests that we need to tighten our belts and take the pain, as the Minister of Finance is always saying. We'll see how the situation proceeds. We will see if there will be basics on the shelves. We will see if the black market will continue thriving at alarming rates at which it's thriving. That will be all from us today. Good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just had one point that I disagree with your question.
It's in the car.
I'll just take it.
Why is I mean, we don't want excuses, health, quality, everybody did all this, but
I did what? You did? I actually do have cooking all in my house right now.
Very true.